is it the foods that you're eating, or is it the amount that you're eating, or is it the timing that you're eating? Because all of
Right.
those are actually important factors. The great thing about fasting is that you can simply
Dr. William Lee here, physician, author, and scientist. I am actually doing this video series to bring on my friends and colleagues, people that I actually know, and share in a lot of stuff in common to have a conversation about things that we care about. And, so you guys can actually be a little bit of a fly in the wall and hear what do people like us actually talk about in real life. And today I'm actually joined, really pleased to have my good friend, Dr. Jason Fung, who's in Canada. He's an MD like me. He's a nephrologist, kidney guy. I used to always marvel when I was in medical school at the people who do nephrology, because the kidney seems simple, but it's incredibly complicated, and it actually controls, your whole kind of like destiny of how well you do. Like you can live with a lot of other stuff, but your kidneys pretty much, if you don't have those in good shape, you're doomed. So anyway, I brought Jason because he's one of these, like me, somebody that was trained in the factory, but somehow we wound up busting out and realizing that there was a whole other world out there that we had to get in touch with. So I went to the Mediterranean to do some research for my next book. It's on metabolism, and I was searching stuff online, and I was thinking about metabolism, and I was thinking about, somehow it was almost like the YouTube gods actually knew that I was thinking about it, and lo and behold, they started serving up your videos. So I watched a few, but here I was in the summertime in the Mediterranean. It's beautiful, surrounded by beautiful environments. And I was thinking about this whole idea of fasting. So summer, I usually have a little bit of a less structured day. My summer pattern is very different than my regular school year pattern, or whatever you want to call it. And then when you're on vacation, a lot of people go on vacation, also very unstructured. So how do you, how should I be thinking about summer structuring of fasting or eating or not eating, and how do you do it?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. First of all, William, it's great to be here, actually, and I love your your characterization of the the factory because it really is. It's like a mass production. And yeah, the fasting is something which is very flexible, and I think that's really what we're all looking for in the summer. Like, if you think about the school year, for example,
Yeah.
it's very structured through September to sort of June for many people. And then you sort of let loose in the summer, so there's less sort of guidelines and stuff. And that's where fasting is really helpful, because you don't really have to do it a set way. That is, you could fast one way and then next week do it a different way, and then the week after do it a different way. So, for example, I went on vacation too, just recently in Greece, and
Wait, you were in Greece?
yeah,
I was in
yeah.
Greece.
Oh, are
Maybe
you?
that's why the
Oh.
YouTube fed us. We were on the same. Maybe we're in the same Wi-Fi. Where in Greece did you go?
I went to Athens, and then I went for a few days in Santorini.
No kidding.
So
I was exactly on Santorini.
get out of here.
I'm at. Okay, now it wasn't YouTube. It was probably the Wi-Fi that actually did it. I was in Athens and I was in Santorini. I go to this little village called Ia. I don't know if you saw the
Yeah,
sunset.
yeah. I went by. It was I was in Immerovigli, which was
Oh,
just a
that's a
little south of
beautiful area
there.
with
Yeah.
a gigantic walk out with the church on the very end of it. It's like a little amazing town. I think that's the highest spot on that island. So we're going to talk. Okay, we're definitely going to talk about what we ate in Santorini. But tell me about the less structured stuff. You went on vacation, and how did you handle it?
So the thing is that you can do whatever you want, right? So it's I was with my family there, so it was and some days there was breakfast which was included, and some days not. So the thing about the fasting is that you're not set by any rule. So on the days that I had breakfast, I don't normally eat breakfast because that's just what I'm used to these days. So I don't sort of want it or require it, but because it's there, and I had a later breakfast, and then that was sort of it's okay, because you can make it up on the other side. If you want to still keep to that fasting regimen, you can eat earlier and then sort of stop eating in the afternoon. It's very hot anyway, so it's sort of easy to do. I find it a bit difficult to eat too much when it's hot. I
Yeah.
just find everything uncomfortable, right? So, and I think a lot of people are like that, right? So that's the advantage. And then once I got back, I just went back into my usual regimen. I actually wound up gaining some weight because I was on holidays. I was eating a lot of sort of, trying all different things, some of which were very stuff that I wouldn't normally eat, for example, like
Like what would you not normally eat?
like baklava. It was a classic there. Of course, I'm going to try it, right? But
Of
it's full
course,
of
you're going to
sugar.
try it. By the way,
Uh,
the interesting thing about baklava, if you were to break it apart, I think it's besides the butter and super sweet honey. I mean, there's other good stuff in there, like the walnuts and stuff like that. So I think that it's interesting how some of these desserts, they start off with them just some good dietary fiber in it, but it's like then pound you with sugar, so that's how you gain. Wait, tell me how you did this. All right, look, we were in the exact same place. And I was honestly, this is after I watched your videos, like it's crazy. We could have just like texted each other. We could have gotten together and just
oh,
had a meal together. Hey there. Have you heard of intermittent fasting? I'm sure you have. It's not what you eat, but it's about when you eat. And I've got a simple guide to help you get started with intermittent fasting. If you're looking for an easy way to boost your energy and improve your health, and maybe shed a few pounds along the way, this could be the perfect solution for you. In my guide, I'm going to show you how fasting helps your body burn fat and also repair itself. It's an easy thing that you can do effortlessly every single day. Plus, I'll give you tips on how to succeed with intermittent fasting. And I'll tell you the science behind why this works. Just click the link below to grab your free copy, or scan the QR code on the screen right now. Now, let's get back to the video. So look, in Greece, people eat in the Mediterranean in general. People eat later. That's just
yeah.
the culture. And I would imagine they probably get up, like still reasonably early in the morning, like not terribly later. So what is it like? How do you think about? Because this is literally what I was trying to contemplate. Like, are people who eat dinner late by their culture, but still get up to go to work and stuff like that? Are they less healthy because they're eating so close to their bedtime, or how do we do? Is there any data? Like, how do you think
Yeah,
about that?
there's some data, and it's very, very confounded, of course, because it's all mixed in. So not only the timing of the meals, but what you eat and how much you eat, it's all very much confounded because it's all sort of dictated by that location. So is it the foods that you're eating, or is it the amount that you're eating, or is it the timing that you're eating? Because all of
Right.
those are actually important factors.
Yeah.
So just changing one single factor doesn't always change
Yeah.
the other factors, for example. So some of the, especially in Europe, for example, like if you look at the portion sizes, they're
Yeah.
just,
Right.
if you're used to American portions, you're like, whoa, this is like half of
Yeah.
what I'm used to. But that's
Exactly.
just what they eat. Like they're
And
they're used to it.
shared food, right?
Exactly.
So
Yes.
instead of getting your own big honking plate of a 3-inch whatever, you're getting lots of little pieces of things that you can actually share.
Yeah, and I think that so that sort of family style eating is sometimes a little bit better, because a lot of times people, when they eat, they're trained to eat until everything's done. So even if you're sort of full, there's this sort of, well, you should just finish your
Clean your
plate.
plate.
Like you don't want to, yeah, you don't want to waste it. And of course that's from you know years of sort of food is
Post-war messaging.
exactly. And it's expensive and you don't want to waste it, right? So you don't want to eat. Whereas the sort of, if you're sharing, then there's no obligation to finish it, because and then a lot of times you'll have stuff left over and you'll just pack it or whatever to go, but it's not any
Right.
individual responsibility to sort of finish your plate.
Yeah.
And that's part of the tradition of a lot of places. And if you're less hungry, you don't feel so. I always thought it's strange, because it's like, whether you're hungry or not, you eat the same amount because it's dictated by your by the portion size. Like if you go to a restaurant, it's the same portion. Whether you're hungry or not hungry, most people will just finish that. It's just sort of human nature. But it really shouldn't be. That doesn't make any sense from a physiologic standpoint. If you're not hungry, then you should be eating less,
So
right?
what's your tip? Like, how do you do it yourself? Like I was also thinking about this. What are the cues that you personally sense when you just say, yeah, I'm going to stop?
I think the best thing is one, don't start because I've had this and I this is I noticed this more on vacation because my
Hmm.
meals are sort of they were more structured because of the environment and where you are and stuff. And I noticed this few times that there were be times that I wasn't hungry at all. I wouldn't, I would have normally just not eaten. Like
Okay.
if I was at work, and I'm not hungry,
Yep.
I'm not going to eat. There's no reason to. But because I was on vacation, for example, and other people wanted to eat, so then as I started to eat, what I noticed, which was extremely funny, I thought, is that I wound up eating like almost a normal meal, whereas I actually could have skipped that whole meal. But once you start,
Yeah.
it's actually very difficult to just stop it because that little bit of initial food gets you sort of into that. It sort of changes you from not wanting to eat and being full and I'm okay, I don't need to eat, to hey, I'm eating, I might as well finish this off, finish my meal. So it's always strange to me, and I know this happens to a lot of people too, is that if you start, you wind up doing the whole thing as opposed to you actually, I just could have skipped the whole thing. Now, if I was trying to lose a lot of weight, for example, then it's super detrimental because you're eating, you can't lose weight while you're eating.
Yeah.
So no matter what it is. So, if you're not hungry, then don't start. And this is especially true if you're in a place like Greece and there's just other stuff to do. Like you might want to go hiking, or if you're really hot, you might want to go for a swim. Eating is not really what's foremost on your mind because there's just other
And
beautiful
just
places and
because
stuff.
there's 3 meals a day that we've been socially conditioned to have doesn't mean that, we're robots to that.
Yeah.
There, and I think that that's such an important point. So when you found yourself eating despite your because of your environment, but despite your which you might otherwise do, um, were you like how did what are your own cues for limiting, like stopping? Like do you feel like how do you get your harahachi bun mi? Like what's your 80% or 50% or whatever stopping point? Like what's your internal barometer on that?
I think the only thing is just to sort of try and do it mindfully, just sort of thinking, am I really hungry anymore? And of course, external cues do play a big role in that, and that's where sort of sharing meals is. Those are the external cues. So you sort of gauge how much food is left, and who's eating a lot. Then you can sort of scale back what you're eating because you see somebody else is hungry or something like that, right? And that those are those sort of external cues. Whereas if you get your own plate, then it's like, oh, okay, I finish this amount of food, otherwise I'm wasting. But really trying to just take it slowly is the main thing. When you're eating too
Yeah.
quickly, and
Yeah.
and that's true, I think, in a lot of cases, you wind up one not savoring the food, but you wind up just you're not letting those satiety signals work before you go. So that's the main thing. The other thing that's easy, of course, is that they don't desserts is you just want to stop that very quickly. Like, yes, I'll cheat a little bit, just to try some of the local delicacies and stuff. But for most meals, I just didn't. If you stop dessert, you're sort of like halfway there.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I somebody gave me some baklava. I had like one little forkful of it to just to get the flavor, and because I actually enjoy it. Years ago, when I actually spent time living in Greece
Oh, wow.
during my gap year, so I did my gap year. I think you and I talked about this, on a separate private conversation. Like before medical school, I went to Italy and I went to Greece, and I was really interested in the culture and how they incorporated food as part of their identity, and also how they view this continuum of food and health, and disease, all together. So I had eaten baklava before. I take a little fork. I didn't actually finish it because it was just like I didn't feel like I needed to finish it. So, all right. So, uh, that's super helpful. Like I kind of feel like I'm talking to the guy that I should have texted so that we could have actually compared notes while we're eating a meal, just figure it out. All right. So tell me, was there, I've been going to Santorini for many years. You'd
Oh.
be horrified at how many times, not horrified, you'd be delighted to know how many times I've been there. But it's one of my favorite places. I love the fact it's up on a cliff overlooking the sea. I go to a place that's very quiet and not very crowded, and I actually holed up to write my next book there, because I needed to just have like peace and quiet and really an inspiring environment. So, was there anything there? Had you been there before? Is
No,
this your
that's
first
my
time?
first time.
Okay.
It is stunning.
Was there anything that you ate there that was memorable? Like I always think about when I talk about my trips, like something that some memorable food. Like what did you have that was memorable, and why?
I think what I really enjoyed there, one, it was actually everything was delicious, but they had this one thing there, which was the seafood moussaka, which I thought was just
Hmm.
really nice. So moussaka is sort of a shepherd's pie type dish, right? But with eggplant. So there's a little bit of meat, but then there's a whole lot of eggplant, and I actually love eggplant. And then there's usually some kind of potato or something, mashed potatoes. So it's sort of like shepherd's pie, but with a lot more eggplant in
Yeah.
it. And I actually really enjoy it. It's in a creamy sauce usually. And what they did here was that they changed the meat, the usually beef or pork, to seafood. So there's like, there's shrimp and squid and fish in a sort
Wow.
of tomatoey sauce with a lot of eggplant still. And it was like, this was really, really good.
Wow.
It was good. It was like just, it was a nice fresh take on.
Did it still have a cinnamony flavor to it? Like because
It was a more tomatoey because they changed the sauce to more of a
okay.
tomatoey base,
Yeah.
but it was really nice. You know,
And so it still had eggplant. So basically, I explained moussaka as kind of like a lasagna. You shepherd pie's a good example. I think of like when I make it, it's like a lasagna. You alternate layers and you put a little bechamel stuff on top. And one of the distinctive flavors of the traditional moussaka is actually they use cinnamon. There's
oh,
cinnamon in it, so you get a little bit of a unusual twist of the flavor. I always found it to be very distinctive. And there's a tomatoey thing, but I love the idea of trying with seafood.
yeah, it was really interesting. I guess the cinnamon probably wouldn't go so well with this
Yeah, right,
seafood. So
right.
it was
That's what I
more of a
was.
tomatoey, sort of a more bright. They
Yeah.
had the acid of the tomato sauce, and I think a little bit of lemon and stuff. So
Wow.
more bright flavors than you would see, and no bechamel sauce, right? It was more of a tomato based sauce. But then with
Interesting.
the eggplant, it really paired really nicely because I think eggplant and tomato sauce actually do pair quite nicely.
Yeah. Well, I would have never have thought of eggplant and seafood into a moussaka, but I'm gonna go look up a recipe now. I'm gonna go. This is what I love to do. Whenever I see something new, I'll actually go check it out. So I was inspired by, did you sample any of the fava beans on Santorini?
Yeah, I had
They
some of that and the tomatoes, the local tomatoes that they grow there,
on the
and those were
volcano.
just,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm.
I love the fava beans. They cook them, they puree them, and they put a little bit of olive oil. But what I thought was really interesting, it's basically a bean salad at room temperature. It's not warm, and but what they served it with that was interesting to me were caper leaves, because capers grow wild on Santorini, and so I had little capers too.
Oh,
But they actually had these like pickled, it's probably brined caper leaves that also have some of the quercetin and stuff bioactives actually from the capers themselves. But it was sort of placed like a layer on top of the fava beans. And so I ate them together, and I thought it was just a really unusual, novel for me way of getting two different flavors, right? So the
yeah.
leaves, they weren't crunchy, but they had some texture. They had a little bite to it, and it was briny. And the fava beans are very smooth, and so you had two different textures and two very different kind of flavors. I just hadn't had it together before. I thought that was really unusual. And then the other thing that I love always on Santorini, did you try some of those volcanic tomatoes?
I don't know if they're they call them local tomatoes, so I don't know if they're from the volcano or
Well,
not. But
when they grow them locally, they because the volcano soil is parched, it's so hot there, that they wind up being really concentrated with of they're very sweet tomatoes. And so I'm actually doing some research now. I brought some of the dried stuff back. I'm actually going to take a look at the lycopene levels and try to see if I can do some comparison of the dried versions to see what's on there,
wow,
what's in
that's
there.
cool.
So yeah, it's great. I love having conversations with friends who have been to the same places about foods. All right. So listen, just to wrap up, I would love to, if you could tell me, how do you handle getting back into a healthy eating pattern time wise with jet lag when you come back? Like, how did you handle that?
Yeah, that's a really tough one. So some people wind up, fasting until sort of you get to your destination because the time zones are they're 7 hours. There's a time difference, so you wind up with a huge stretch. The great thing about fasting is that you can simply not eat until you get to your destination and then sort of fall back into those things. Now, it's easier, obviously, if you're sleeping, if there's like an overnight thing.
Yeah.
But that's sort of the key to a lot of it is, and it's almost the opposite of what most people do, which is that you get to the airport, you're bored, so you eat, and then they serve you meals on the plane, so you
Yeah.
eat,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
you're not eating because it's good.
No.
Like those
Right. Yeah.
airplane meals
No
are
kidding.
just terrible.
So
Um,
that's a great, like, very practical tip, like a hack. If you're going to be taking a long trip, and it's like the trip itself is an opportunity to fast. Just don't eat the crappy stuff that you might otherwise pick up at the airport, or that they might try to serve you on the plane, or that you might, somebody might pass you. Like, that's really great. And then when you get to your destination, you can kind of just like step right back into the pattern that
Yeah, you
you have.
step right back into it because obviously with the time difference and the flight, which was like 12, 13 hours, it's everything's all sort of jumbled up. And but if you then simply just fall right into the pattern at your destination, it makes the jet kind of coming back out of the jet lag a little bit easier. So that's helpful for
And
some
I
people.
suppose if you're jet lagged, you don't have to go force yourself to go eat another meal, no matter what time it is.
Yeah,
Go to bed, go to
yeah.
sleep. I mean, or stay up until it's time to go to sleep, and then just fall asleep. But you don't actually have to force yourself to eat another meal.
Yeah, yeah. So you sort of time that, your meals with your eating so that you sort of just leave everything until you get
I
to your destination and then
I
just
love
go
it.
and
This is so cool, Jason. Like, I'm grateful for you, as you just did like my personal travel consultant for healthy timing of eating, and we were just in the same place, so we know exactly what the travel time is and all that kind of the whole pattern thing. So look, where can people learn more about you?
you can go to my website. That's Dr. Jason Fung, or you can go to my YouTube channel, which is under Jason Fung. And yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. So yeah, you can find me there. On YouTube, I'm putting out videos sort of every week or every other week or so. So covering a lot of topics. So that's a good place
And
to find me there.
what's your most recent book you want people to know about?
The one I did, the most recent one was Cancer Code, which is sort of an exploration of not so much nutrition, but more about how cancer develops. Because I think it's actually a really, really interesting story
Hmm.
of what this disease actually is. So it's more of a scientific exploration rather than a how-to sort of thing. It's about the science of
Yeah. Well, and
that.
that's part of how you and I got into the work we're doing now, is really just curiosity and then poking into it. And then now we're drawn deeply into it. And then you kind of like put on your explorer's hat and your backpack and you're like wade into the jungle to try to figure it all out. Right.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
I encourage everybody to read the Cancer Code, but you also wrote the Obesity Code, which really gets into how do you actually lose body weight. And, like my next book is really about metabolism. So, it's fantastic that, the science is continuously changing, and it's really, really interesting. So for everybody watching, check out Dr. Jason Fung, Fung. His YouTube channel is super popular, and his website, and get his book. And with that, I mean, by the way, if you want to learn more about food as medicine, which we started talking about, there's so much more. Please sign up for my newsletter. Come to my website, Dr. William Li, drwilliamleeli.com. And you can find me on social. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. My handle is at Dr. William Li. I wrote Eat to Beat Disease. There's a lot of stuff on there. And now that we've revealed that we both had a great time in Greece eating Greek food, I encourage people to look up moussaka recipes with eggplant. And if you dare, and if you eat seafood, check out how you would actually make with seafood. You've inspired me, Jason, to actually check it out. In fact, I'm going to do it right after we get done with this video.
So cool. Thanks so much, William.
All right. Thanks very much. Cool. Hi there. If you enjoyed watching this video, I know you'll love the next one. Stay here and check it out. And I'll see you there.